This is the first in a series of workshops that we hope that Music Unites will continue to put on for us as we learn about the importance of our musicians, our composers in Jamaica. So let us begin. Let us stand and we will sing our national anthem. I'd like to invite Mr. Peter Ashburn to come to the piano and play as we sing the national anthem of Jamaica. At this time, I would like to introduce Mr. Winston Ewart, former director of the School of Music, former vice principal of the Edna College, the representative of the Trinity College, the president of the Jamaica Music Teachers Association, and chairman of Music Unites Jamaica. Welcome, Mr. Ewart.
Thank you, Ms. Wallace. I must say it's a pleasure to be here today, to be experiencing this event. But it would not be the event it will turn out to be if you were not here. And so mine is the pleasurable task to welcome you all here this morning. But of course, you know, there are some special people among us who I would like to recognize. First of all, I would like to welcome Ms. Alison McLean, who is representing the Minister of Culture. She's the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Culture. Welcome. And His Excellence, Mr. Ariel Fernandez, the Argentine ambassador to Jamaica. Ms. Carmen Reeves, Ambassador of Spain, Embassy of Spain. Yes. Oliver Leash, from the Secretary of the German Embassy. Yes, that's over there. Ms. Janelle Van Gleesen, Vigel, OS representative, wonderful. Miss Rose Miller, representing Jamaica National. And Jamaica National is one of our sponsors, so thanks for sponsoring. Then Valerie Facey, who should be no stranger to us here in Jamaica. Welcome, ma'am. And then Linda Spitt from the UWI Press. Mr. Corey Mills, representing Jamaica National Building Society. Thank you. And then I want to recognize Major Joe Williams. Sure, I saw him here someplace. Right. Miss Marjorie Wiley, welcome. And last but by no means least, Miss Nicolene DeGrasse Johnson, principal of the college. And, oh yes, she's hiding in the crowd around the back there, Paulette Bellamy, also one of the musicians to be recognized today. And then to all my old colleagues who I worked with here at the School of Music, too many to call names, but it's good to be back here in this building. And to you all, I extend greetings and welcome. I hope you will find the conference today very edifying. I'm looking forward to every bit of it because some of you I didn't know composed. I know you played stuff, but I didn't know you had it written down. You know, that's one of the difficulties with Jamaican stuff. People play a lot, but we don't write down. So welcome all and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
It is a day to celebrate music. Lloyd Hall was an important musician who wrote music, directed choirs, played a big role in educating our young people, even wrote some books on music education. So it is only right that the first song to be presented would be a song written by him, Jamaica Land of Beauty, to be sung by Laurie Burnett, one of our voice teachers here at Edna Manley, accompanied by Mr. Roger Williams, the director of the School of Music.
Jamaica, land of beauty, we promise faithfully to serve thee with our talents and bring our gifts to thee. Jamaica, we will always in honor of thy name work steadfastly and wisely and never bring thee shame. From riverside to mountain, from cane field to the sea, our hearts salute Jamaica, triumphant, proud, and free. Together in our country, in love and brotherhood, we'll work and play in freedom as all God's children should, with hearts and hands united in thanks for everything that God has given unto us. Together let us sing from riverside to mountain,
years ago, Jamaica National Foundation was motivated by the vision of Music United Jamaica Foundation to increase awareness and recognition for the classical musical heritage of Jamaica. And as the project continues to produce seminal research and data to document the works of Jamaican composers of classical, patriotic, church, and theater music, we continue to remain aligned to their mission. Our own Robert Nesta Marley, whose music is recognized and celebrated globally, said that the one good thing about music when it hits, you feel okay. Years have passed, and Bob's work continues to influence other musicians and to enhance our country's popular music brand. The Jamaican cultural music, as we know it, is dynamic and influences many other genres, and is recognized for its rich, diverse indigenous musical forms, from mento, calypso, ska, to reggae. However, there are other aspects of Jamaican music that are not readily recognized or appreciated. It is fitting, therefore, that the documentation and repository of Jamaican classical composers is being spearheaded by the Music Unites Jamaica Foundation, so that more of us can explore and appreciate the contributions to the genre which are relatively unexplored. Reggae has its own place as one of the informal synonyms for our country. However, while reggae has noticeably cemented its place in our culture, with unquestionable presence worldwide, classical music also has local roots right here in Jamaica. In fact, there are local classical composers dating back to as early as the mid-1970s. And while it is perceived as a musical immigrant, it has transcended decades and remains a contributor to our diverse musical expressions. This morning, we will celebrate the work of our composers, who helped to strengthen and bring prominence to Jamaican classical music. And one such composer, ladies and gentlemen, is Samuel Felsted, whose work will be recognized today. An organist and composer, Felsted's name is cemented in our country's history of classical music. He created groundbreaking opportunities, setting the path for aspiring composers. How many of us know that a Jamaican was the first person to create regional history by producing the first oratorio in the Americas? Anyone? That some would say happens many decades ago. However, it resulted in the continuity of the art, which more than 20 composers identified for study under the current Music Unites Jamaica Foundation project. Jamaica has a dynamic and distinctive cultural heritage based on its ethnic mix of people, which are embodied in our country's motto, out of many, one people. And therefore, our musical expressions have emerged to reflect that national diversity. The Jamaica National Foundation, established in 1990, is committed to national development, and we understand the value of the arts, as well as the need to record the expressions of our cultural heritage. Ladies and gentlemen, music is a vibrant component of our culture. Agreed? And over the years, we at Jamaica National have supported initiatives which seek to create avenues to foster musical talent. One such beneficiary was Alpha Boys Home. And while we continue to support cultural programs, we are constantly reminded of the importance of historical evidence, hence the need to expand the pertinent role of research and to document our history and culture. It is in that context that we can preserve and enrich who we are as a nation, and to create a platform for the development we envision for our country. Our support of this project is a demonstration of that stance. We therefore welcome the prospect of this program and hope that the archives from the research will be useful to aspiring musicians. We know that classical music is not as popular as other musical expressions. However, it deserves our appreciation and certainly has a place in the mix of Jamaican music. Hence, the research will create a repository which will serve to influence our local artists, composers, music and music lovers to further enhance their appreciation for classical music. As such, one of today's activities will be the launching of the Music Unite Jamaica Foundation website, to be followed next year by the publication of handbooks for distribution to our libraries and other educational institutions. It is my hope that today's activities will shed new light on the contributions of Jamaican classical composers, and will be the beginning of a movement to educate more Jamaicans about this aspect of our music as being vital to our cultural heritage. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller, and we do appreciate so much all the effort and contribution Jamaica National is making to the Music Unites Foundation. Thank you so much for coming and bringing your lovely ambiance so we can have a lovely day. At this time, we would like to invite Ms. Alison McLean. She is from the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sport to bring us a few words.
Chairwoman Swallis, Dr. DeGrasse Johnson, Principal of the Edna Manley College for the Visual and Performing Arts, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished faculty and staff of the Edna Manley College, very distinguished honorees, which when you call those names, it's a roll call of distinction, excellence, and creativity. Organizers of this very important event today, in particular the Jamaica National Foundation, representatives of Music Unites, and others who are here. I bring greetings from the Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sport, the Honorable Olivia Grange, otherwise called Babsy, who unfortunately had to be called away at the very last minute. And I must say, at the very last minute. And so therefore, I stand in her stead this morning, honored and privileged so to do, but understandably, perhaps a little rattled at being called at 8:45 to come for a 9 a.m. event. But I'm here and I am very happy to be here. I need to excuse myself just to say a personal word, Mrs. Facey, to say how happy I am to see you. I don't think you remember, you and I worked at the Early Childhood Commission. I was Alison Anderson then, and you are such a giant in this area, and I'm so pleased to see you here this morning. Jamaica's vibrant music history and creative work done by Jamaican musicians have made an indelible mark on the global entertainment industry, which no doubt underscores the long-standing history of our music excellence. History is replete with the names of composers, arrangers, singers, and entertainers from our little island who have earned global recognition for the very high standards that they have set. And indeed, a symposium such as this exemplifies what we at the ministry refer to as convergence. Convergence within the creative economy, music, entertainment, culture, and innovation. Today, at this first symposium on the life and works of Jamaican composers, leading composers living in Jamaica, we will not only consider the careers and contributions of only a handful of some of these creative people, we will celebrate the diverse musical culture of Kingston, which includes the Euroclassical tradition and underscores the impact of composers such as Samuel Felsted, composer of the 1700s, and contemporary composers Noel Dexter, Marjorie Wiley, Peter Ashburn, Paulette Bellamy, Ibo Cooper, Cat Carr, and so many others who are being celebrated today. Your activity, our activity today, calls for introspection, of course. But I believe that the main achievement of the discussions and deliberations which will be undertaken today must be towards the future. A future that is brighter, a future that is more productive, a future that is more rewarding, and we mean that in every sense of the word, rewarding, for our composers and our music. Especially as we are in the first commemorative year of Kingston and its designation by UNESCO as a creative city of music. This designation represents an international recognition that we are not only a creative city of music, but a center of creativity overall. As a matter of fact, this event, followed by the Jamaica Music Symposium at the University of the West Indies, which will take place this weekend, which is the Rocksteady Ska Festival, as well as the Rocksteady Ska Festival on November 26th, and then the official anniversary event of on December the 4th of the Creative City designation will all be major events which will celebrate Jamaica's great music industry. As a result, I anticipate that today's frank, open, and rich discussions will contribute towards improving the skill and earnings of composers, as this is fundamental and vital to the achievement of what we are hoping for in this designation, and will also, of course, make a very big economic impact on Jamaica and the lives of our citizens. Our unique brand of music tells its own very unique story, and it creates friendships, linkages, and connections with other people and other nations. This is why in the last 6 months, the ministry, through the entertainment division, has sent 3 sets of musicians to countries around the world in order to deepen cultural ties through musical exchange. In September, the National Youth Orchestra, through Music Unites, traveled to Creative City, Music City, Katowice in Poland, and Freddie McGregor recently went to Colombia, Bogota, through a Creative Music City exchange. Nomads, just this week, traveled to Japan to participate in a program, in a festival there in Hamatsu. The Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport is facilitating these exchanges as a way of not only broadening the skill sets of our musicians and composers, but also as a way of deepening our relationships with other creative cities with a view to exposing everybody. That is if they needed more exposure to Jamaican music, innovation, and creativity. However, we should also remember that music is culture. It is entertainment, and it is a business. So while we often big up our chests and we feel very proud that others try to imitate, copy, reproduce our music, we understand that we must do more to leverage the cultural and economic value of what we produce musically. And we need to nurture it and maximize our earnings. So I hope that this symposium is able to contribute to that process, is able to help Jamaica create a pathway to more rewards and better rewards from the creativity and the creations of our people. And so I commend the organizers. I hope too that this initiative gives rise to an ever-expanding pool of highly competent composers, and that this group of persons will be seized of the importance of the role they play in documenting and preserving our musical heritage. Through the excellence that sits in this room and through the enabling environment created by the Edna Manley School and other government agencies, we hope to really ensure that Jamaica is the place of choice to live, work, do business, and listen to live music. I bring greetings from the UNESCO Creative Cities Creative City of Music Committee that includes the KSAC, the UDC, the JHTA, Trenchtown Foundation, and the Norman Manley International Airport, as well as other public and private sector stakeholders. We see this event as one part of the diverse and innovative chain of the tradition that is Kingston music. On behalf of the Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, I, on behalf of the Ministry and the Minister, happily endorse this event and wish you all good success and vibrant discussion this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McLean. We've been welcoming all kinds of people and acknowledging all kinds of people. It's time to acknowledge Rosina Moder, because it's her heart and her love that has put all of this together.
Thank you, Alison, and thank you for being our MC this morning. All protocol observed. I'm very humbled and honored by your presence, who came to us, Ambassador, Mr. Laich, Ms. Carmen, from the embassies. We really appreciate your endorsement. I have 2 slight corrections, because if you work hard on a project, you have a certain pride, yeah? So I need to say that Music Unites Jamaica Foundation is a Jamaican organization, is a Jamaican NGO, non-governmental organization, although I'm Austrian born, but all our directors and are all Jamaicans, and so we are Jamaican, and we are not only focusing on the research, which is our big baby now, our major focus for the last 2-3 years, but for the last 20 years, we have been assisting students, and I see students here. Students, thank you for coming out. It's for you, basically for the music teachers and the students. This morning and afternoon is our aim to reach out to you. And we have assisted students with scholarship and mentorship, so that's one of our aims. We do a lot of international collaborations, so the international aspect is very important. And for example, we have representative of one organization here. It's called Musicians Without Borders from Hamburg, and they are several Germans here, 4, 5, 6, who teach in Trenchtown at the culture yard. And they, from Musicians Without Borders, they have agreed to volunteer for us this morning. I want to especially welcome you and thank you. Yeah, that's a great one, Secondly, my second correction is that it was big on to Katowice. I was in Katowice. It was Music United Jamaica. It was the National Youth Orchestra initially was supposed to put the group together to go to the UNESCO Music City of Katowice, and then it didn't happen. And so Music United Jamaica Foundation, we put the group together, where several members are here. Peter Ashburn is here, Jeremy is here, Dwayne Stevenson went with us, and Samuele, who was a teacher here at this organization. He joined us from Berlin, and Arvis Reed, who is a past student of this organization, a bass player, he joined us also for Katowice, and we had a wonderful week in Katowice, so it was great. So it's good to remember. So we are very, very appreciating the collaboration with the UNESCO City of Creative City Network as well, yes? So now we're going to the launching of the website, but before, one special person hadn't been announced. It's Manfredo Zimmermann, Professor Manfredo Zimmermann, Argentinian German lecturer for recorder and flauta traverso. This is the Baroque flute in the Music University in Cologne. Manfredo, welcome to Jamaica. Okay. Manfredo is here for the second time because 20 years ago he came. We launched the 222 book. This was my recorder book right here, and he gave workshops. And on this occasion, Mr. Paul Bicknell, you have been recognized as well. I recognize your presence, Mr. Paul Bicknell. It was 20 years ago that Paul Bicknell took us to this beautiful restaurant called Ivers up in the hill overlooking Kingston, and he pulled out a score, and there was music by Samuel Felsted, who I never heard of before. And Manfredo got interested, myself, we got immediately interested. So if it wasn't for Paul Bicknell, I don't think this symposium would have happened. So we thank you, Paul. So that was great, because then I started getting interested, and thanks to the German embassy, Mr. Laich, I appreciate your presence. The German embassy brought us here a choir and the orchestra in the year 2000, and we performed the Oratorio Jonah with an orchestra and a choir, because Manfredo had offered to orchestrate the work for a chamber orchestra. Before it was for organ, choir, and soloists, where I must say Mrs. Facey and Paul Bicknell and the Honorable Bishop Thompson have put on for the first time, which Miss Facey will elaborate on it, in 1990. So it was, we had the second performance, but the first performance was thanks to Valerie and to Paul, yeah, and the bishop. So I appreciate your presence too, and that you have offered to speak about it. So now our little launch of the website is music-unitesjamaica.com, music-unitesjamaica.com. It's work in progress. I never knew putting up a website is such a tedious work. It's work in progress, but Ms. Rose Miller, thank you for all your help. Thanks to Jamaica National. We would not be here without Jamaica National, who in 2013 had offered their financial help to do research work. And Rose will be so proud that Samuel Felsted is the #1 on our website, because she has been asking, where Felsted isn't there, where Felsted isn't there, he's there. We focused on the composers of Samuel Felsted, #1, born in 1743. The second most important composer from the past is Sir Frederick Hyman Cowan. Sir Frederick Hyman Cowan was born on 90 Duke Street in 1852. And in the second half of the 1800s, he was one of the most prominent composers in England. A good friend of Elgar, everybody knows Elgar here, but Sir Frederick Hyman Cowan was an amazing composer who wrote many pieces, was very famous, and we teach music history class without him, unfortunately. So this all will change, because Sir Frederick Hyman Cowan is here, and I have Toby Brown here who did the article for him. So we asked the composers to write the article. We had some writers for it. And so it's not to be seen. So there's Hyman. And then the composers who are featured here today, we will be, by Christmas, everybody will be up on the website, because we have them here today. But we focused to put on our website the ones who are not here and are far away. Who knew about Sharon Kraft? Sharon Kraft was born in Kingston and left in 1969 to Australia. And it was thanks to Anne McNamee, who was here, who said, oh, we have somebody visiting. I think she has to do something with composition. No, she will speak better English, of course. Then said, come. And we met her, and there it was. She lives in Australia, is a fantastic composer, has been doing lots of film music, and was here for the first time after she left in 1969. So we were like mad to have met this Jamaican composer who lives in Australia. Also, thanks to Anne, we have Ted Ronzi. Ted Ronzi, born in Manchester, and he's on the website, yeah? He conducts and composes in Taiwan. He lives in Taiwan. Hopefully, at the next symposium, one of those wonderful people will be with us. And then, of course, last but not least, from the persons living outside of Jamaica, we need to say Elinor Burger. Elinor Burger, born in 1949 here in Kingston, has gone to the School of Music, past student of this institution, was a member of the Jamaica Folk Singers, yes. There's a member here, welcome. And she has been given a scholarship to the Royal School in England, never came back, but she comes back to visit. She is very, very prominent, so prominent as a female composer. Let us recognize that Jamaica has many female composers, Miss Marjorie and Miss Paulette. Hail to you and all that. It's just special, because female composers either are not listed or don't exist as much, but we have a lot of them. We list them all with pride. And Elinor Burger has been asked by the BBC to commission a piece called Athena Arise for the close of the proms in 2015, which was heard by millions all over the world. So we hope that hopefully can get Elinor here for the next symposium next year. And so this is our homepage. Then you would have, it will take too long. You could remember www.music-unitesjamaica.com. And then you could go through. It will take too long. Why should I bore you with this? We rather want to entertain you. Let me ask Kimila Isaacs to come on stage and to sing from an aria by the Oratorio of Samuel Felsted, the aria Lord I Obey, accompanied by Stephen Shanar on the harpsichord and Emily Dixon on the cello. Those two musicians are called in Baroque music basso continuo. That's our basso continuo, the continuous bass. And Professor Zimmermann, our special guest. And I hope I can play because I was supposed to warm up there, but I was busy, so I will try to join you and play some bright notes. So thank you. We're playing for you, Lord, I Obey by Samuel Felsted. Thank you.
Zimmerman on alto recorder, and Rosina Moda also on recorder, and our singer, the beautiful Camila Isaacs. One more round of applause. So when people think of Baroque music, they don't really think about Jamaica. They think about people like Bach and Handel. But here is Samuel Felsted, whose music sounds like that. But it came from here, Jamaica. So we are a blessed country. We are a country whose culture is wide and broad and deep. So right now, I'd like to ask and welcome Mrs. Valerie Facey, who will come and give us some more information about Samuel Felsted.
Thanks to Rosina Moder, founder of the Music Unites Jamaica Foundation. We are here today to celebrate the life and works of Jamaican composers. Since 1985, when Rosina first arrived in Jamaica from Austria, she has championed Jamaican musicology, not least of all by marrying her Jamaican composer husband, who you'll learn about later, and with him producing her accomplished Jamaican musical family. Rosina has asked me to reintroduce Samuel Felsted, our son of the soil and Jamaica's first documented composer, who, after having been in hibernation for over an astonishing 200 years, was initially revealed to us in 1990 by the late Dr. Thurston Docks, at the time a lecturer in the United States at Hartwick College, Oneonta, New York, and the conductor of the Catskill Chorale Society. In collaboration with Sister Mary Dominique Ray, founder of the American Music Research Center in Boulder, Colorado, which provided the research funding, actually, it was in 1978 that Dr. Docks took on the lifelong task of researching Samuel Felsted and his remarkably wide-ranging achievements. Apart from being the composer of Jonah, the first known oratorio written in the New World, and other ecclesiastical music, while his actual named profession was organist and composer, Felsted was also known variably as the botanist, the inventor, the poet, and the artist. Samuel Felsted's father, William Felsted, was alleged to have come from the town of Felsted in Essex, England, but was somehow to have been found in Jamaica in the 1730s, almost 3 centuries ago. It was in Boston in 1736 that William applied to open a shop, quote, as an ironmonger who arrived from Jamaica, unquote. In 1741, he married Joyce Weaver in Philadelphia, and they returned to Jamaica together, to where Samuel was born in 1743, followed by many other siblings. It seems that the entire family was musical, and William Felsted did well between his ironmongery business and serving as the organist at the St. Andrew Parish Church in Halfway Tree, a profession that was carried on later by his son Samuel. Samuel was most likely educated at Woolmer School in Kingston, which was established in 1729. His musical training was first mentored by his father, followed by the Venerable Daniel Delusky, who long served as organist of the Kingston Parish Church. Later, our Samuel became the organist at the St. Andrew Parish Church, and then, at the death of his mentor, Delusky, he became the organist at the even more prestigious Kingston Parish Church. Samuel Felsted's epic oratorio, Jonah, was composed with libretto around 1773 to 74, and was published in England in 1775, with frontispiece drawn by the famed Anglo-American painter Benjamin West, and engraved by the renowned Italian Francesco or Francis Bartolozzi, both among the list of the 253 subscribers who chose to support Felsted by subsidizing the publication of Jonah, which has languished in the British Museum for those 200 years. In 1771, Samuel Felsted was admitted to the newly formed American Philosophical Society in Philadelphia, founded by none other than Benjamin Franklin and other notable intellectuals of the day. Remarkably, Felsted became one of the only 4 18th century Jamaicans to be received by this distinguished institution. Jamaica has a rich and varied historical and cultural heritage, influenced by the many ethnic groups which have graced her shores and shared their distinctive styles of artistic and social expression. From the earliest times of the agrarian Aboriginal Taino Indians to the arrival of Columbus in Jamaica in 1494, followed by 161 years of Spanish influence, and finally the conquest by the British in 1655, an amazing aesthetic groundwork was laid. Within a remarkably short period, Jamaica became an eclectic colony of wealth and importance, accompanying both the voluntary and involuntary immigrants. The indigenous cultures of Europe and Africa came to the now flourishing and fashionable island of Jamaica, where they blossomed and melded into a unique culture all its own. The first public theater, spelled P-U-B-L-I-C-K, is documented in 1682, and believe it or not, horse racing in 1687. Exquisite tortoiseshell objets d'art were being made, while gold and silversmiths were crafting Jamaican hallmark designs in Spanish Town and Port Royal prior to the great earthquake of 1692. In 1688, Sir Hans Sloane was writing his illustrated natural history of Jamaica. I must mention here that few persons are aware that this great Irish-born British physician, naturalist, and collector, born in 1660, spent only 15 months in Jamaica, yet took back to England over 800 specimens of flora and fauna, which he bequeathed to the nation, and his collection became the basis of the British Museum, which we know today. He also introduced Jamaican chocolate to Europe, and was the first to document the enigmatic practice of the Jamaican Christmas-time John Canoe, a singular type of masquerade conceived, designed, and performed by the enslaved, surprisingly in partnership with their owners, who were competing with each other for the most outstanding costumes and characters. I bet you didn't know that. Printing was instituted in 1718, and the many news sheets and periodicals were advertising a plethora of theatrical presentations, musical happenings, and dance opportunities soon after that time. Repertory companies from London and New York were visiting Kingston and Spanish Town by the 1750s. Grandiose monuments and paintings by visiting artists of repute were being commissioned in addition to exotic wood furniture and fitments. Architectural competitions abounded so that dignitaries could vie for the finest Jamaican Georgian homes. It is of particular note that Jews have always been welcome in Jamaica, along with Middle Eastern, East Indian, and Far Eastern ethnic groups. It was in this ecumenical environment that Samuel Felsted grew up, and with his parents and family was assimilated along with so many other migrants who have contributed to the mainly African fabric of Jamaican life, cuisine, and culture. Though the Felsteds were Anabaptists, they were connected to the Anglican Church and Christian beliefs in the same way that over time the African descendants determined their own Christian religions, language, and artistic prowess, while intermingling with the European descendants to create the unique beauty, intelligence, and pride of the Jamaican people today. Samuel Felsted epitomizes the European and American side of this unique fusion. His Oratorio Jonah was slated to be performed in 1789 in the presence of the recently elected George Washington as the first president of the United States. Even that long ago, Jamaica was gone abroad and making waves with Felsted's Jonah, pun intended. For myself, I feel very privileged that I was somehow involved with this extraordinary musical discovery. Thurston Dock stayed with us at our home during many of his later research visits, and I was able to follow the entire story from beginning until the jubilant day when Thurston finally found the proof of Samuel's birth in Kingston in 1743. He had nothing but praise for our National Library and the Jamaica Archives, and all the many dedicated persons who assisted in this search and became intrigued and involved with this amazing musical discovery. Later, with the blessing and help of the rector of the St. Andrew Parish Church, now Suffragan Bishop of Kingston, the Right Reverend Dr. Robert Thompson, on the 26th November 1990, the Jamaican Oratorio Jonah was performed at St. Andrews for the first time since it had been last performed there circa 1775. Among the 700-odd persons and dignitaries present in the church were Dr. Thurston Dox himself and his wife Lillian, along with Kenneth Ingram, then librarian of bibliography for the University of the West Indies, and Pamela O'Gorman, then director of the School of Music, who had all been tremendously helpful during the research. Also of immense guidance, Paul Bicknell was there as the organist then and still continues in this capacity to this day. Wonderful Paul. It has been my pleasure to share with you the excitement of this discovery and to remind us all of the importance of the preservation of our precious history, and heritage. Thank you.
Thanks, Mrs. Facey, for bringing us that vital information that we all needed to know about Samuel Felsted, our own composer in Jamaica. At this time, I'd like to welcome back our very own Rosina Christina Moder, who will introduce our guest speaker, Professor Manfredo Zimmerman from Argentina.
It will be very short, thank you, because I did introduce him before. There's Manfredo Zimmerman, a lecturer for recorder flauto traverso at the Music University Cologne. He is born in Buenos Aires, and Mr. Ambassador, we are very proud to have you. The ambassador from Argentina is here, and with German parentage, so we are also very proud that the German embassy is represented with the cultural attaché, Mr. Leich. And Manfredo will tell us how important in the history is and what has inspired him to orchestrate the work. And I need to thank him. And in long discussion back and forth, Manfredo has agreed to make all compositions by Samuel Felsted available online as of January 2017. This is for the first time ever that music, the students shall know the music by Samuel Felsted can be ordered online. It's the Oratorio Jonah. It is the 6 organ voluntaries. This is voluntaries for organ or harpsichord. And then I said, Manfredo, only two works are left, maybe earthquake, maybe hurricane, and family tradition not keeping them, because the people speak of another oratorio called Jonah. So I inspired him to arrange from the organ voluntaries 2 of the voluntaries for a trio, flute, violin, and cello. So he will also make these 2 trios available. So the music by Felsted, thanks to Professor Zimmerman, will be available online, and please be looking forward to hear what you're offering us from your opinion, you know, being an outsider, and sharing our enthusiasm. Thank you.
So, good morning to everybody here. I'm very happy to be here and share with you this very day. At the beginning, I will apologize for my not so good English. I will try my best, and I hope they will understand me. And I will also speak freely, so improvise in a way. Yes, as it was said, I got in touch with Felsted and this oratorio 20 years ago, so a lot of time was passed. And when I saw the score, it made click in my head, and I said, so this is fantastic music, but it's not all. It's like a piece of gold which has been in nature, and you don't see, you don't realize the gold or the content of the piece. And I thought, and lots of ideas came to my head. And now, to explain what happened and what I did, I want to make a little trip to the past. A trip to the past. It's the 18th century, and the music situation in the New World. That means South America and the Caribbean and also North America. People always were interested in music. Not everyone, of course, but certain people with certain cultural niveau. And there was a big difference between what happened in music in South America and the rest of America. I will explain you what was the difference. In South America, there were the Jesuits, you know, this Christian people that made by order of the King of Spain and of Portugal the reductions, Indian reductions, or reductions for Indian and also for black people which has been slaves in those times. In these reductions, they were safe. They were safe from the farmers and the people that they want to take them again as slaves, as workers, and they could live free, but under one condition. The condition was that they had to go to school, and they had to take lessons from arts and from music. Yeah, so this people living in these reductions had lessons of music. They learned violin, flute, harpsichord, lute, all those instruments from this time. And then happened something very interesting. They became so good, they were so musically, they became so good that, for example, for the big, I would say, like Eastern and Christmas and the big feasts of the Christian church, they called these musicians because they were better than the professionals in the big towns like Lima, Cordoba, Buenos Aires, and so on. They were really extremely good musicians. And of course, there were also composers writing pieces for these people. The situation in the Caribbean, like Jamaica, was completely different. So the musicians and composers had a standalone situation. There was no institution which helped them, and maybe the church, of course. But now we are coming to Samuel Felsted. He wrote, as we know, the Oratorio Jonah, and he has left the score, which was printed 1775. When I saw the score, I realized, wow, that's very good, but that's not all. And I tried to imagine the situation of Felsted. He said, okay, I have a great idea. I want to write this oratorio. So I have some singers. I'm playing the organ, of course, no problem. And maybe I have very few musicians around me. Maybe a violin or not, or maybe an oboe or not. So the situation to perform was very reduced. But his ideas were very big. So as everybody, every composer has the idea to make something big. But if you don't have the possibilities to perform it, you have to make a sort of reduction. And this is what I argued. I thought the score shows me something that it's like this piece of gold, but you don't really see what's under this skin of, please help me, Grünspan of Rosina, where is she? A sort of rust, yeah? You don't see really. And when I watched the score, I saw that Felsted made sort of compromises. Why? I will tell you. Every instrument has his own idiomatic. So a violin has a different idiomatic, like a flute or an oboe. You see that, if you have the experience, you see that in how the melodies, the rhythms, the jumps or not jumps, and so on, are composed. Also the tonalities. So for example, F major is very typically for a flute, for an oboe, and for a wind instrument. And D major is typically for trumpets. You know, and this time, if you have in the Baroque piece for trumpets, it's always in D major. And this was what's happened in the Jonah. For example, the aria we played right now is in F major, and also the way to the melodies and what happens musically is very typically for flute or for a recorder. If you look at works from Telemann, Bach, Handel, you see exactly the same figures, and I said, this must be for flute. Felsted wrote it in the organ part. It's perfect. It's not a second solution, but it's not. I think it's not the ideal that he had in his mind. And so this was my my work, that like a detective, I tried to search and to think what could have been the idea of Felsted, of the best way to perform it, which of course wasn't possible for him in this time, no? And then I saw, wow, this is really in the tradition of Handel, Bach, Telemann, and other great composers of the Baroque. Even some parts I thought, yeah, it's like Haydn, Mozart. So he's in between. He has the new tendencies included in his way to compose, but he was really in the tradition of the Baroque composers. Of course, the new style, the new way to compose from the classical instruments, composers like Mozart, Haydn, arrived later to the new world. And yeah, and then I started to arrange, and the more I did this, the more I was excited, because I saw, yeah, it works, it's fantastic. Just to get out of this reduced part, from Felsted, and spread it and make a bigger orchestration, which you can hear. The grand chorus, we are going to perform it at noon. Yes. Of course, this is one solution that I found, one orchestration. There are lots of others, and I think also every situation will be different. So when you get starting by January 17, this score, you can decide by yourself if you put an oboe or a flute or a saxophone, I don't know, but it makes the whole oratorio more colored with more different instruments. I will say also that Felsted, in his part, which was written, he followed the tradition of the Baroque era. That means he gave us like a skeleton. That means it's a skeleton without meat. The meat is that what the musician has to put by himself. For example, all sort of ornaments, or yes, also instrumentation. This is that what the performer has to decide, put it itself. Later on, in the Romantic period, the composers told the musician everything they had to do. They wrote down crescendo, diminuendo, sforzato, piano, everything, even the tempo they gave. But before that, in the Baroque, the musician, the interprets, had more responsibility and more freedom to decide what to do, which tempo, which ornaments, which instrumentation, and so on. And this was also the tradition of Samuel Felsted. He was living in this Baroque thinking. Yeah. And one thing I want to do also is this Baroque thinking. You find it in the music itself. That means one character, a very important thing in the Baroque area was the inequality. Is this the right word? Yeah, not to think in equality. So the French Revolution with fraternité, égalité et liberté, yeah, that égalité was something very, very new for people. People didn't think in that nothing in the world was equal. No, men and women were not equal. Men were not equal. So the king is more important than the ministers, and the citizens are very less important, and the poor farmers are almost no men. So, and also in the music, you found that if you have 4 quarter notes, for instance, they look equal, but the internal worth was not equal. If you write da 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 da, no, it's just da do da do like speaking, of course. And so the main description of music was music is a sound speech. So you have sound and you have speech. And speech means like speaking. And speaking, of course, you have accentuated syllables and less accentuated. And the same thing is in the music. And this is what I was working also with the musicians to find the idiomatic of the Baroque music, in the sense that we find the idiomatic of Samuel Felsted's music. Yes, I think that was my contribution to this big aim to make a revival of Samuel Felsted, and I do hope. My project is to make also a CD recording. To make a CD recording, I'm looking for sponsors a little bit, and in Germany. Or all over the world. I will make maybe a fun crowding, let's say, and make it, really a professional recording of Samuel Felsted to show the world the beauty of this music. And this is my last word, and I say thank you for listening. Miss Facey said that the singing was thought for a countertenor. What is a countertenor? Countertenor was a male voice with sang soprano or alto. So we know that from the castrati in Italy, but this is not the castrati. The countertenor was a very special English from Great Britain voice, male voice, had a cultivated falsetto. No, yeah, it's in the upper register, and nowadays we have lots of countertenors. Even you can study this in conservatories or in universities in Europe, and I do hope it's my aim to make the recording with countertenor, of course. Yes, to find, and also with historical instruments or copy of historical instruments, to find really the sound that Felsted maybe had imagined in his dreams. Thank you again very much for listening. Have a good day.
Thank you, Professor Zimmerman. That was a load of information which we truly appreciate. At this time, I'd like to welcome and appreciate Mrs. Hazel Ramsey McClune, who has been a part of our folk research team. She's sitting right there. And I'd also like to welcome Mrs. Myrna Haig, who has joined us. Welcome, Mrs. Haig. At this time, we're going to do some interviews with our leading Jamaican composers, Paulette Bellamy being our first. She's sitting right next to the lovely Anna Strawn. And if Mr. Holgate is here, he's here, there he is. So welcome, Mr. Holgate, come to the podium, and he will be taking over.
Good morning again. My name is Michael Holgate, and this is the beautiful, wonderful, incomparable Paulette Bellamy. Please give a round of applause for Mrs. Paulette Bellamy.
Thank you so much.
So I know Mrs. Bellamy because she was my musical director for Ashe, the Ashe Company, for the longest time. And I'm very honored that they've asked me to ask her questions, because I am not a trained musician outside of whatever Mrs. Bellamy decided to do with us while we were in Ashe. And so I'm very honored that they've asked me to ask her these questions. I look up to her greatly. She's pretending to be shy, but she's not shy. Well, in big crowds, but she is a comedian in private, and she is one of the most wonderful, decent human beings that you could ever meet. So let me just read a little something that I borrowed to read about her. Jamaican virtuoso. Jamaican virtuoso. Is that the right pronunciation? Yes. Celebrated classical pianist, accompanist, versatile violinist, captivating performer, accomplished music teacher, extraordinary composer and arranger, Mrs. Paulette Bellamy.
Good morning, everyone.
She has some things behind her name: OD, LRSM, ATCL, LTCL, FTCL, but I'll just tell you the most important order of distinction in the rank of officer, and Jamaica Silver Musgrave Medal for distinguished eminence in the field of music, and that's why we're here. She's also founder, director of the Jamaica Music Industry Award-winning Touch of Elegance, and she's also co-founder of the internationally acclaimed Ashe Performing Arts Ensemble. So, let me just get to the questions now. I
was hoping you wouldn't get there.
I know. I'm going to ask a strange question first. If you did not do music, what would you have done for a living?
Music. All right. No, but initially, growing up, I thought I'd like to do television and radio presentation, that sort of thing. And in fact, I was awarded a scholarship to get trained in that area, but the papers went late, and then I decided I'd just go to university instead. So that didn't happen, and so I'd done so much music before.
Might as well.
I just said, well, might as well. And then while I was at university, I did quite an intense program with Tom Murray there, and afterwards I said, well, let me concentrate on my music. I started teaching 1 or 2 students, and I just saw the direction. This is the direction that I'm being sent in. And so my life has been one where somebody makes the direction for me, and I just follow in the pathway.
Okay, well, thank you. Following spirit, so to speak. If I remember correctly, you used to tell us about doing a little bit of a go-kart racing.
Yeah. At one time, I was thinking of being a pilot. And the closest I got to that was driving a go-kart around the stadium. So that's the sort of daredevil thing that I like to do.
All right, tell us a little bit more about your background in music. Where did you study music?
Well, my mother, Lynette Case, started teaching me when I was 4 years old. It was 2 of us who were being taught together. My friend Carol Gascoigne-Smith, she was also the same age, and my mother started teaching us all on the piano, and we got ahead really quickly. So we performed as a team from when we were 7 years old. We used to perform all around. People who were around at that time, long ago, would remember us playing at all different functions together. We used to play on 2 pianos or duets on 1 piano. And then when we were like about 10, we were sent to violin lessons. And that's how it started.
You actually sing as well, don't you? So
I used to.
Yeah, I remember a long time ago there's a song that you did. You did something, it was Meow.
Yes. Oh, the cat duet.
The cat duet.
I've
never forgotten that.
With Dawn Marie.
Dawn Marie Birchie, was it?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, Michael, that made an impression on you.
It made an impression on me because we had never heard you sing before. Because you were always just, it was always the piano or the violin, and you were telling us how to sing and doing stuff like that. But then when we heard you on stage and you were performing Meow, it was very exciting.
Yeah, I was a member of the University Singers along with Marjorie. Yes, and we did touring together, went to New York, we went all around. At that time, I thought I could sing.
Okay, so so one of the semi-deep questions now, a simple question though, but answer it anyhow you want to answer it. Why do you make music?
It makes me feel wonderful. It gives me such a sense of satisfaction, just a joy to be involved in this. And I think that it's a big blessing that I can play while I work. You know, there's no work in it. It's just hours. You got to put in hours, and the outcome is so satisfying. You know, so that's what it just brings a joy to me, and I'm happy that I wouldn't have done anything else that would have given me that sort of satisfaction.
Okay. What feeds your musical soul, or what most inspires you to write or create music?
Well, most times, you know, I have to be motivated. Either somebody wants me to do something for a particular function or a particular event, then I need to be motivated. So it's the drive to make me have to find the time, because usually musicians have to do so many things to survive. You have to spread your wings, and to finding time to write takes something. You have to have something special to say, well, I've got to sit myself down and get the discipline to create.
So there's no piece of music that you've ever composed, nothing that you just had this burning, intense burning to just create something, and this is how it came out. You didn't care about how it was gonna happen or who was gonna hear it. It just needed to come out, and it came out.
Well, right away, what comes to me is a song, a Christmas carol I did. I was working with the singers, with Noel Dexter, and let's talk about the Christmas story. I just kept hearing some little sounds in there, and he was around by my home, and you know, he sort of inspired me to get it done, you know. So that's a little special to me, and I think it came out. A lot of people like that composition.
Would you like to sing a little piece of that for us?
No, Michael.
Let's talk about the Christmas story. Gather
round and sing.
Yeah. Let's tell about the Lord of glory, Jesus
Christ our King.
Right. Stars so bright,
shine at night, shedding joy
with its light. Love that God from above to find the Savior of love. Mary looked at him and he smiled, and her heart was full of joy. For she knew that the Savior of the world was this little boy. Shepherds bow down and worship him. They are full of praise for the King. Yes, please, a round of applause for Paulette Bellamy. Okay, so what would you say is unique or special about how you make music, if anything?
Unique? I don't know if it's unique, but first of all, the difficulty, in other words, if I'm doing something instrumental, then it flows. It tends to flow. But if I'm going to do something with like a song, the words are a bit of a challenge. I'm not totally happy with the way the words fall into place. Okay. But it's just to be in the right place at the right time, and the inspiration. And as somebody was saying to me earlier on, I have to have something with certain amount of enjoyment, certain amount of excitement, because I get bored very, very easily, as you know. Yes. So when I'm composing, I think of always the development. Where is it going? Yeah. And what sort of impact is it going to have on the persons who are hearing? Because for me, the excitement is important. Yes. Always.
There's when I think about you, I usually think about a merger of classical and reggae music. I always think that that's something that you like to do. Is that just in my imagination, or is that?
No, you're correct. I don't think I can do it otherwise. Yeah. I'm so steeped in classical music that's the way. Usually, if I'm doing even something with regarding the reggae genre, somehow the little classical part, and then I'm fascinated with Baroque music, you know, so I find the contrapuntal type of thing comes out, you know. So I can't
help but to do
separate them.
that. What would you say, I know we're talking about composing now, but what would you say is your greatest, or if you prefer, your favorite musical ability? Is it composing, arranging, performing, teaching? What is it?
Well, I love to perform.
I know.
I love to perform.
I know.
And I also like to teach. You know, it's very satisfying. I've done so much teaching. It's very satisfying when you see students that you've started who have really achieved a lot and who are able to make this a part of their profession, you know? It is very satisfying. So I tend to, there are lots of areas that I do enjoy. I like the composing too, but again, it's the time that you need to have to do it. You know, one should be able to take off into the mountains or something like that, and just shut out everyone to really get where you need to be. But it's not always possible. So everything fits into place. The performing, the teaching as well.
Every songwriter or composer has a process of getting to the end product. What is yours?
To get to the end. A process.
Yeah.
Well, you just have to take it a day at a time. Go with the flow until you see where you're getting to, you know, and then a development happens in your head.
Well, what's the shortest time frame that you've ever had to write a song Can you remember any song that you just rolled it out like that?
Yes, Christmas is Magic.
Okay.
It just came in a split second.
Okay. All right. So this question, let me just ask a question.
Change it.
So, what song have you heard that you said, I wish I had written that song? I wish I had written that song. Can you think? It's just another way of asking what's one of your favorite songs, but I think that it's more interesting this way.
Hallelujah.
Yes?
I'm fascinated by the runs and, you know, what you can put into it. That's just one that just comes to my mind.
Yes, thank you. Which collaborator gets the most out of you or has got you to produce your best work, would you say? Whether it's a lyricist or even if it's, because I know with Joseph Robinson, Joe would push you to do stuff.
Joe would insist.
Yeah.
He had a way a gentle way of insisting, you know. And as I said, I need somebody behind me all the time. Come on, get it done, you know. And Joseph was very good with that.
Yes, I would say that your spirit called for the right persons to push you. So the push is there anyway. If you could live in any era, any musical period, what time would you love to live in as a composer, as a musician? I guess it would be the Baroque period.
Yeah, the Baroque, yes.
You have mentored many musicians. Do you see anything of yourself in them, and do you hear anything of yourself in their music?
Yeah, most of my students. You know, people have said that the moment they see my students performing, they know who the teacher is. This is, you know, like there are quite a few of them. John Williams.
Yes, absolutely.
Yakengale. Yes.
You know, it's interesting. Sorry, just to cut you, but it's just to go back to something you said earlier. It's the excitement that you talk about in you know, music and how it's composed and how it's arranged. I remember very recently I was talking to Conroy Wilson, who is another student of yours, and he was watching a show and he was saying Paulette Bellamy would not do something like that. It was just too one level. It was just not, you know, and it was interesting. So I thought of that when you said the excitement a while ago, because I think maybe because of your theater background as well, the whole thing of, you know, big opening of a show and then, you know, rise to a climax and then another big opening to close, big closing, sorry. I think that you, that might have influenced your music, generally speaking.
Most definitely. The theater influence. I had a lot of theater influence on my life at school. You know, my mother was a theater person too, so that also gave me a sense of drama to everything that I do and write.
What keeps you going?
Oh, the fact that I'm alive and able to go after all these years, you know, and just the excitement of being alive and having my music to inspire me.
What important question should I have asked you that I did not ask you?
Let's see. Do you really like talking? Do I really like talking?
I wouldn't have to ask that question. You don't like talking in
No,
public.
I don't. I like to play.
Yeah.
I
So why you never bring a violin and play something for us? They didn't ask.
No, they didn't ask.
Yeah, next time.
But I have Anna here.
Oh, and she's going to sing something.
She's going to sing one of my compositions that I did many years ago.
And this is the perfect time for it.
Perfect
And we didn't
time.
rehearse this, so I'm just saying,
Yes.
this is just theater happening, magic of theater.
Yes.
Thank you very
And
much. Could we
Michael,
please?
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Another round of applause for Paulette Bellamy, and welcome Anna Strong.
He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table in the presence of my foes. Thou anointest my head, and my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord
Okay, moving right along. The great Peter Ashburn. We heard him this morning. He played the national anthem for us. And so it is his turn for us to listen to his words about his life. And he's going to be introduced by this young man who has been standing over here, Mr. Alvin Campbell.
Some of my favorite musicians are in this room. You know, Marjorie, of course, is right there. How are you? Very good. And Peter Ashburn and myself go quite a few decades back. So Peter, when did you first become involved in music? How old were you when you first? Stretch back your mind.
No, it didn't happen like that. The household I grew up with was my mother, my aunt, my adopted mother, my aunt, my sister, and my grandmother. And even then, you know, if you're a little boy and it's 4 women, you don't have any of the decisions. So apparently, my aunt, who was a music teacher, Joyce Ashburn, she heard me, you know, the people who went by on the street and did the, you know, fish and the little singing their stuff, and I would reproduce it, you know, accurately. So in typical of that generation, she said, Thelma, the child has a good ear. He does the violin. And that was the end of that. Right? So that's how I got into music. It wasn't anything to do with me.
Okay, so you started first with the violin.
Yep.
How old were you at that time?
Yeah, I think I was about, it was 8. It was a year after I went to high school.
Okay, in case anybody missed that, Peter went to high school at age 7. Yeah. At 7-year-old, he was with 11 and 12-year-old boys. Now, that must have been some kind of experience. Were you bullied?
No, I was just too small to be bullied.
Okay.
They used to call me Quit, yeah. I went to high school because I was finished with prep school.
Yeah, the term prodigy has been used for Peter on numerous occasions. He was a prodigy on violin as a very young person, obviously. And he has been a prodigy in other things. When did you start composing, Peter, that you can remember?
No, it's my mother who told me. It was age 11, apparently. I sort of remember the melody, but it wasn't a great melody, but it wasn't a...
Hum it for us.
No.
Yes.
No.
Everybody wants to hear the melody.
It went, la da 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 dee dee da 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 dee dee, do la da da dee, something da da dee da da. That's all I remember of it. But
and you notice he can't sing it without play using the fingers. He does the finger.
No. Actually, that's a thing I discovered, about 10, 15 years ago, and somebody said, when you think of music, do you see a keyboard in your head? And I went, huh? And then that's when I realized I do see a keyboard in my head. I don't write at the piano. I don't have to. I don't write at the piano unless I want a certain kind of sound. But I see a keyboard in my head. I was astounded to realize that was what I did. That's how I set my pitches.
No, you were involved in, I guess, popular music at an early stage, studio work. But then you went and studied music at Berkeley in Massachusetts. Tell us about that. What was your area of study, and how was that experience?
What happened was that I left high school finally, right? And my mother was, trying to push me in all the various areas. The doctor, no. The lawyer, no. The accountant, no. And I kept. Oh yes, what had happened was that I was very fortunate. I got a job in a recording studio. And, that was great fun for me. I became a studio musician also. I was playing on the reggae sessions. This is about the beginning of the 1970s, just about 1970. And at the same time also, just around the same time, Easton Lee, who was at that time in advertising, called me up one day and said, do you want to do a jingle? And my obvious reply was, what's a jingle? And cut a long story short, that turned into a 35-year career. And so I was fine. I had my mother's car. I had a girlfriend. I had a job at a studio. I was playing and recording sessions. I was doing jingles. What more does a, young man want? You can't want anything else. And then my mother said, come on, sign this, no? What is it? Oh, it's just an application to Boston University, something. Yeah, I have to leave, right? And then something about the second week in December. He said, you've been accepted at BU at Boston University as a sophomore. You're going in January. And, the world collapsed right there. But so I ended up in Boston in the middle of the snow, not wanting to be there, and I was so miserable. But anyway, I went to Boston University for exactly 2 weeks.
For the course of Peter.
Yeah, first of all, they have some buildings they call West Campus. It's some dormitories for students. 2 monoliths. I don't know if anybody has seen 2001. Yeah. The obelisk, that's what they look like. 2 of those things, and 600 students in each one. And so they put me in this room with this guy who says, hey, on weekends, if you go to the elevator and you see a bunch of white guys and they're drunk, don't go in the elevator. They'll beat you up. And so that was the living arrangements, right? And then when I go to the class, they tell me, go to Prof such and such to see if you can study violin with him. So I knock on the door of this man and he looks me up and down. Said, yes. And I said, Prof, whoever, Miss McHale told me I should come and ask you if you'd train me on the violin. I don't know. Who were the principal composers of the Notre Dame era? What? What? The principal composers of the Notre Dame era. I don't know. If you write a C for a B-flat trumpet, what note sounds? B-flat? Well, I don't know. I'll speak with Miss McHale. And that was the point. I said, what the hell am I doing here? So Berkeley College is, you walk down to Kenmore, you climb across the freeway, and there's Boylston Street down there, and that's Berkeley. So I just went across there and said, what's going on here? And luckily they took late entries. So I said, to hell with that BU business. And I went to Berkeley. And I ended up, they had a thing called the Advanced Placement Test, which was a test you could take. We didn't even know what it meant. A few of us took it. Once we discovered that, the Advanced Placement Police wasn't going to come and assassinate you or something for failing it. So I said, what the hell, So I took it, and lo and behold, I passed something, and I got in the class. And it turned out to be one of the best calls I've made in my career, because it was about, I think it was a class with 13 of us. We all wanted it. We all knew something about music already. We wanted it. We did twice the work at twice this pace. We did 2 years' work in 1 year. And we got taught by the best teachers in the school. So it was beautiful for me. Right? It really, really set me straight. And it allowed me to integrate the training, the actual theory of it, with what I'd been already doing. I started to understand what I was doing before on a technical level, which has helped me very much now. I think I'm much more integrated into, people learn harmony, and they learn counterpoint, and they learn this, that, and the other. And that has nothing to do with what they play or think. But I think I'm luckier in that I've been able to understand everything I do. And it annoys a lot of people, because they think I'm some kind of technocrat. But anyway, I'm talking too long, sorry.
No, that's fine. I don't have to talk while you're speaking. Okay. Now, Peter, you have had a kind of very diverse musical career. You've spoken about jingles. You've done a lot of classical work, violin work, keyboard work. You've done pop music, including some impressive pop hits. You've also done jazz, and you've done folk. Now, what is it as a composer? What puts all these things together? What is it that allows you to step from your pop outfit into your classical outfit?
It's the type of person I am. Not everybody can do it, and not everybody likes to do it. As a matter of fact, actually being allowed to do this is a function of living in a dot in the ocean, right? in order to survive, you have to do a number of things. If I was living in the developed world, I'd be forced to specialize. I'd have to do one thing and do it, do it well, do it at a competitive level. But here, the standards are obviously a little lower, and so I can get away with dabbling with all sorts of things.
Okay, the folk songs. I know in terms of the folk songs, you have done some.
Oh, you mean the things that I did for Dawn Marie Virtue?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
You have done some stuff that has been very highly rated and respected and has become quite popular. But tell us about it, because I know that you have a view on that.
Okay. In my art music, in the art music part of the music I do, I am very interested and extensively use the folk material, the traditional material of Jamaica, because it's very rich, it's very deep. As I said, it's a dot. This is a dot in the ocean, and yet there are hundreds of folk songs. You go around the rest of the Caribbean, you hear all these songs that we associate with Jamaica, and I don't know, it's hundreds of them, and a lot of them, most of them, as a matter of fact, are of very good quality. We had some very very talented traditional composers, so it would be a shame to let them just so I fool around with them. I've done things with them. Now, how those folk songs, it's a set, really became a set of 5 folk songs that I did for my good friend and colleague Dawn Marie Virtue, and because she was badgering me, can you
Dawn
do
Marie
something?
is an accomplished singer, for those who don't know.
Because she wants to perform it, and she badgered me for I think it's about 4 years, and then she finally said, "I have a concert coming up. Can you do something?" And then I think I eventually gave her 3 other songs. And boom, all of a sudden, everybody's talking about them. Perhaps because I don't treat it the way, the normal way you treat a folk song. The folk song implies a certain harmony, usually, and it's usually pretty straightforward. Right, the straightforward traditional harmony. Instead of doing that, I've used some different, what they call 20th century composition techniques, for want of a better word, and to accompany them, and it has given them a sort of different flavor, yes, and I don't know. I guess it has appeal like that, appeal that's above and beyond a traditional rendering of a folk song.
Okay, what is a composer to you, Peter? Because we're here celebrating composers. What is a composer? Because there's a songwriter, right? There's a lyricist,
Yeah.
What is a composer? What defines a composer?
Well, a composer is somebody who makes up music, makes music, and with that definition, all of our songwriters in the pop idiom are also composers, but it's just they compose in one particular idiom of the whole field of composition. I think when people talk about composers nowadays, it's used a bit loosely. I notice with movies now, they say, this particular movie, and you hear about Adele, and you see, Robbie that, and Justin that, and then you see music composed by James Newton Howard. What is it? Composer, James Newton Howard. As if the songwriter is not the composer, but the person who has written the cue music, the mood, the music to enhance the mood of the film. I don't know. I don't make that. So I suppose that's what they're referring to.
Okay. classical composition. What is classical? Because
no, classical is a you know, it depends on who you talk to, because for musicians, classical is a certain time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for the general public, classical is something that's not pop. For the nowadays, for the 20-year-olds, classical music doesn't even exist. In Jamaica, apparently music, as far as I can see, is vocal pop music. Everything else is, I don't know, noise or something is just not music, or you know, and that's what it seems to be. So it's
because classical music is not really a genre. In other words, there's Strauss, who was playing dance music, right? And other people were playing pop music.
Yeah,
but they're all put in one bag now and called classical.
What we tend to do nowadays is, if we want to be a little more honest about it, we call it art music, where music, for the sake of music, is art music. So jazz is art music, and what people would call a classical music, you know, it's we call it art music, because there's a fellow in New York called John Zorn. I think his main instrument is the alto sax, but he's a composer. He really is a composer. But if you ever heard what he did, his instruments are the alto sax sometimes, but there are duck calls, whistles, anything that you can blow and make a sound, he does it. And if you hear it, after you stop laughing, you will be saying, what is it though? Mm-hmm. And he's a composer. So it's probably better to use the word art, the term art music for it, you know.
What are the compositions that you have had, that you have created, that you are most proud of?
Not proud of any of them.
Typical Ashburn.
There's a little piece called Jamaica Folk. What's remarkable about that was that Eddie Siaga, who at least recognized the need for the exploring of the Jamaican traditional Jamaican music. He also started the Jamaica Festival, and I was entered as a little violinist at that time. I entered the festival in violin, and I came first and last. I was the only person in that category. Right.
First, second, and third.
And one of the requirements was that whoever entered had to also play some kind of performance of a Jamaican folk material. It was a nice idea, and I just came up with this little medley of songs. Stephanie here? I don't know. Stephanie Williams was here. Stephanie was the accompanist, my accompanist at the time, and I put together the medley, the little melodies, and she devised an accompaniment. I mean, I was 13 years old, and then in 1986, back in Jamaica after college, and we found some instruments, some people who played instruments, and we had a string quartet going. And I said, I need to write something for you guys. And I remembered this and turned it into, I think it became Jamaica Folk. And it's one of the more popular of the instrumental things I've done. That's the closest I'd say to being proud of anything.
You're touching on an area now that I've always been interested in, which is arrangement as against composition. Speak to that a little bit first.
No, man, I have an anecdote for that. I did something for string quartet. And as I said, I used the Jamaican folk material. It was a 3-movement string quartet work, and it started, I used Penny Relo for the first movement. I used Parakeet in the Garden for the second movement, and we used Why, what, Colin Manacom?
Yeah, yeah.
What, it has a few names. But that for the third movement, and it was quite successful. And performance went, and then I saw a friend of mine who was, in the arts, but not in music really. And I said, "You heard the thing, what did you think of it?" And the person said, "It was nice, it's a pity you didn't write the songs though, didn't write the melodies," which means people don't quite understand, In other words, it's somehow, if I didn't write the original melody, then I don't know. Some people think it's an arrangement. If I don't write the melody, it doesn't go like that. Plus, there's a little bias there, because when Vaughan Williams does the same thing, when Tchaikovsky does the same thing, when Gershwin does the same thing, it's a composition. But when I do it, it's an arrangement. So to live with those things.
Yeah. Okay. Not to finish it, but we just want to invite Rosina. Rosina is doing a little surprise presentation here.
I love
Peter,
surprises.
Yeah, you can see Peter's face when he says he loves surprises. Elena and her variations, which is Peter's work, coming from Rosina.
I even brought the original. I brought the original handwriting from 1986. When I came here in 1985, actually, and played my first concert, I played variations by a Dutch composer called Van Eyck. And Van Eyck based also lots of his composition on very famous songs, folk songs. And he heard me play those interesting phrases. So Peter did write the composition for me about the folk song called Elena. Yeah. Elena and her mama gonna grog, yeah? And wrote variations. So when I started to learn those variations, then I didn't know exactly what it meant. I didn't even know if he was thinking that Elena, the child, goes with the mama to the field, and then she starts crying that she has a bellyache, and the mommy say, "Go home," and then boil Sarah C for your belly. But she go home and boil, what bush she boil? What she
Cersei bush.
Nightsage, oh yeah. The girl go home and she boiled, not Sarah C, she boiled nightsage, which is actually a very poisonous plant. So the poor child started freaking out at home, freaking out, so the mommy had to come home and then rescue the child not from dying. So that is the base of this composition. We don't have the time today to ask Peter if he has been trying to, go through the emotions of the child's, pain, but I try to put it in, yes? On Manfredo, you said something interesting, about the original handwriting. I on purpose brought the original handwriting, although it's long put on notation program, because Manfredo made an observation. We don't have the handwriting of Jonah. We only have the printed version from England, the engraved version. So somewhere in Jamaica maybe is still the original score from the handwriting of Felsted. We don't have it, so therefore I want to honor the composer with bringing the original one and then play some variation. I didn't practice all of them, some of them hard. Please stay for the lunch hour concert where Laurie Burnett and Roger Williams will play two of Peter's folk songs, just coming up now in the lunch hour concert. We will hurry set up the stage. So don't go away, yes?
Big round of applause for Rosina. And of course, the composer, Peter Ashburn. Peter, tell us the composition process. What is that like for you?
Usually we have to start with an idea, but sometimes you don't. I just had in mind my jingle, my work as a jingle composer and producer. I know the initial stages of my doing jingles, you know, the blurt stage of your creativity. Anything that comes in, you can just turn it around and whoop, out comes something great. You know, something comes in again, whoop, two things come in, you go boop, boop. Well, when you get to when I got to about 400 of those things, something comes in and it's dead easy, and you look at it and nothing stares back at you. That's when you have to rely on your experience, your training, your talent, right? But you have to start with an idea, you know, and that's the most difficult thing, to get the germ from which everything else will grow. There's another anecdote with that. It's very quick. It's way back in the days. It's an ad for Dragon Stout, and it was the early days. So I guess the creativity was, the blurt stage was still in there, but there was nothing. And the recording session was like, it was at 2 o'clock, and at 10 o'clock in the morning I had nothing. And you have to call the musicians, call the singers, book the studio, so time and money. And there's a deadline. You have to deliver it either that afternoon or the next day. Nothing. 10 o'clock, nothing. 11 o'clock, nothing. 12 o'clock, nothing. 1 o'clock, nothing. The studio session is 2 o'clock. And on my way to the studio, in desperation, because people are there, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then arriving there, I had to give them something to do. And somehow, something just said, okay, try this. And it turns out to be one of the best jingles I ever did. And I don't know where it came from. So it's a combination with the talent, and then the experience, and then the training can just fill in the blanks. I think that's how it goes. But like I say, because I'm lucky to integrate a lot of the technical stuff that I learned, you know, formally learned. It gives me a number of options, which is sometimes a problem when you're doing work for other people. The jingles, for instance, nowadays. You go to the client and you say, listen, you need to tell me what you want, because I can do a number of things. I can do you want to do something, it can be done 15 ways. You need to tell me which are the 15 ways. You need to talk at me. And they don't understand that. They want you to come with something, and then they say, I like it or I don't like it. And I keep telling them, we cannot establish what you want by eliminating what you don't want, because it's wasteful of everything. And this is, you have to start with something.
Does volume help or hurt the process in terms of quality? I mean, we know about people like Bach that were writing for church every single week, every Sunday. There was a new piece that was created by Bach.
Isn't that amazing?
That's absolutely
amazing.
But
Mozart is probably the most amazing one, you know. But Bach, Telemann, they just cranked out the stuff. They say some people in Jamaica have an idea that Ashburn works best under pressure. I don't. It's extremely painful. It's extremely painful, and it's too much stress. And I'm not young anymore, and so I don't want the stress. I don't want the volume. I want the thing. I'm doing something for Miss Carmen and this Spanish embassy. There's a saxophone player is coming next month to give a concert. Please come. And I've written a piece for him, you know, and I finally managed to crank out the piece in the middle of all the other things I'm doing. Gave it to him. He said, "Thank you, it's very nice. Can we do a cadenza?" I said, you know, Angel, it's a nice idea, but you want to do it, or you want me to give you any? I like how you write. You do it. So that's what I'm struggling with right now. So,
I know you have a great affinity for theater music, and you've done a lot of theater music and for film. But the question is, which has nothing to do with that. I don't know why I started there. Who is your favorite composer?
No, man. That's a
don't know
little
him.
too wide.
I don't know.
No, that's a little too. That's a little too wide. That's a little too wide.
Well, you narrow it
because
down.
one of the most astonishing composers ever is Bach, right?
Right.
If you're a musician, especially, you look at Bach and you say, "How does this do? You know, this is mathematics. That sounds good, you know." And you look at Mozart and Mozart's output. Mozart's quality is consistent and his output is staggering. It's staggering, right? When you know the time he lived and how everything was copied out by hand and written by hand. And you need to, you people who don't know Mozart, just go to, Wikipedia will do, and just look and see his list of works.
Hundreds.
It goes on for 2 pages
yeah.
in 33 years, 34, I think it was. And so there's that Beethoven for the innovation. Mozart wasn't an innovator, Beethoven was.
Yeah.
You know, Tchaikovsky for melodies. And I'm a melody guy. Tchaikovsky just had melody. He couldn't do anything else sometimes, right? Stravinsky for the stuff he used to do. Ravel for his orchestrations. And, you know, it's all over the place. Gershwin for his melodies, you know, there's...
Yes, you started with B, and I thought you were going to say Bacharach rather than Bach.
Yeah, Burt Bacharach was an extreme influence on me because in my teenage years, even though I was a, you know, classical, you know, being trained as a classical musician, that's, you know, being a teenager, you get interested in pop music, and that's when I discovered Burt Bacharach. You know, one of the, in the golden age of songwriting, really. There were a lot of great songwriters at the time, but his songs were always very quirky. Bacharach is a trained composer, and he was using a lot of 20th century composition techniques. And his things are very quirky and very, you know, very different. And he was a big influence on me. I think he still is a big influence on me. Yes.
Finally, Peter, is the composer an endangered species? We had a discussion earlier, that's why, you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Music is changing. Music has changed and is in a state of flux right now. As a matter of fact, music as a career, we have to have a good look at how it's going to be done, because what has been, it's coming from, I mean, it was the Western culture that sort of developed this thing about people doing music, specializing in music and making a career, you know, that you can live and eat and pay your bills and have a family, the kind of thing. And then once we got to the 20th century and the changes in technology afforded ways that musicians could make a living, make a decent living. And the recording industry was one of them, right? It's a very, very important one. Now, all of a sudden, that has been chopped out from under, the legs have been chopped out from under the whole music industry, yeah, to use a cliche. And so now, how to make a viable living out of music is a big question nowadays, you know. So you come back to composers. As long as music is there, you'll need composers. Jamaica doesn't understand composers. Do you know that? That there's been a sort of regression in the 1960s, in the 1970s, and before. there was more of a grasp of what music consisted of, you know? And even in popular music in the 1950s, in the 1960s, you had a singer. What does the singer do? The singer sings, right? You're an artist and somebody says you're going to make an album. The A&R man, the artist and repertoire manager says, come to my office. You go to his office. He gives you a stack of sheets of music and say, go learn these songs. We're going to record them in 2 months' time. And you go to your voice trainer and you learn these songs. You turn up on the day. There's a band and an orchestra there. The arranger has done the work. The thing there, you record, you go in the booth, the conductor conducts, and you sing. Nowadays, the singer is expected to write their own songs. Why? Some singers are some really atrocious songwriters, right? It seems to be some kind of requirement that the singer, and so you have these awful riffing, and it sounds like 20 of the songs that you have heard in the last year, you know. What's that, you know? But that also speaks to music, the purpose of music changing. Popular music, which is the most important type of music nowadays, has a different function. My generation of people, you always had a number of people who loved music. They like movies, they like pictures, you like a theater thing, but they loved music. Nowadays, music for the young people nowadays, music is something that comes with video. Music is something that you have in a movie, you know, and so the awareness of music and its effect is I think, decreasing. So I don't know how it's going to wash out.
Basically, we're at an end now. Is there anything that anybody wants to ask Peter from the audience?
The opera that you've been writing.
Oh, the opera. The opera is basically finished, although I'm sure if I pick it up, I'm going to want to rewrite it. But the opera is there, but the trouble is, what passes for performance in Jamaica is nice for Jamaica, I guess. I'm sorry to say it this way, but it's not good enough for me. If I do an opera, I need some people who can sing. We need to have a proper set and something. The half-baked things. I know. Yeah, I see Michael there. Michael there. No. You have to understand. There are, you know, the half empty and the half full people. Michael is for instance, my colleague Michael, who I respect highly, and I rate highly because he just keeps turning them out. Michael gets it done. I want to get it done right. You know, I want to get it right. He gets it done. No. It's not that, no. And it depends on how you look at it. And maybe that's the problem.
That's it. Okay.
altar sacred flame, rise in honor to his name. Praise